Some stars of a popular auction show took a break at Chiele and never returned to your screens.
This is America. I can say whatever I want.
You can say what you want, absolutely, but you do not have to discredit me or put me down in any way.
Dave Hester, the sharp-tongued star of Storage Wars, claims he saw the truth behind reality TV, long before anyone else. He says auctions were rigged, treasures planted, and drama staged to keep us glued to the screen. We ignored him, mesmerized by the thrill of hidden fortunes. But what if he was right all along? What if those warnings reveal a pattern running through shows we thought were unscripted? Today, we're diving into Hester's story, unpacking the secrets, the betrayals, and the moments that expose the glittered lies of reality TV. By the end, you might never watch a storage auction or any reality show the same way again. The shocking lawsuit that exposed the cracks. If you were watching Storage Wars back in the early 2000s, you probably remember the rush of seeing someone open a dusty locker and pull out a hidden treasure. It felt real, raw even. That's why in December 2012, when news broke that one of its biggest stars, Dave Hester, was suing A&E and the show's producers, fans were floored. Not just because he was suing for money, but because of what he said the show was really doing behind the scenes. Hester wasn't just another reality TV personality crying foul. This was a multi-million-dollar lawsuit that basically accused Storage Wars of being fake. Every dramatic discovery, every shocking find, every argument over an old locker. He filed the case in Los Angeles Superior Court, claiming fraud, unfair business practices, and wrongful termination. The amount? $750,000 in damages, plus whatever extra the court felt was fair for the trouble. But more than the number, it was the reason that caught everyone's attention. He said he was fired for telling the truth. Here's where it gets wild. Hester claimed that producers were salting the storage units, meaning they planted valuable items inside before filming. Imagine walking into a dusty old locker and magically finding a rare guitar or a cash-filled safe. Too good to be true? Well, according to Hester, it actually was. He said producers did it on purpose to make the show more exciting. The fights, the drama, the intense bidding, he said all of it was carefully planned to make you stay glued to your screen. He didn't stop there. Hester's lawsuit went into detail about how certain bidders were allegedly given money to keep auctions competitive and how some scenes were reshot to look spontaneous. He even called it a fraud on the public, saying viewers were being tricked into thinking they were watching real luck instead of clever editing. It was like finding out your favorite magician wasn't using sleight of hand. He was just using camera tricks. And then came the part that made it even messier: timing. Hester had just finished filming Season 3 when, boom, he was out, fired. He said it happened right after he raised concerns about how all the faking might actually break California's anti-rigging laws, the same kind meant for game shows. So it wasn't just a work disagreement, it was about whether the show was even legal. Of course, A&E denied everything. They said Storage Wars wasn't scripted and called Hester's claims ridiculous. But the internet wasn't so sure. Fans started combing through old episodes, pointing out how lucky some discoveries looked, how certain characters always seemed to get the best lockers. Suddenly, what had felt like an authentic peek into the world of storage auctions looked, well, a bit suspicious. The legal fight dragged on for years. In 2013, part of Hester's lawsuit got tossed, and a judge even ordered him to pay A&E's legal fees, over $100,000. Most people would have quit right there, but Hester didn't. He appealed, revised his arguments, and kept pushing. By 2014, the whole thing ended quietly with a settlement. The amount was never revealed, and Hester was soon back on the show by Season 5. But the bigger story isn't just about settlements or comeback appearances. Hester's lawsuit hinted at something deeper, which we will reveal before the end of this video. Dave Hester didn't come out of nowhere. He'd already made a name for himself before the lawsuit ever happened. The guy knew value when he saw it, both in business and in entertainment. But before he was calling out producers, he was doing something else entirely. And it's what made him one of the most talked about personalities on the show. And that part? You'll want to hear how it all started. Hester's stardom on Storage Wars. Dave Hester was the undisputed antagonist of Storage Wars, a role that catapulted him to fame and made him synonymous with the show's cutthroat energy. When the series debuted on A&E in December 2010, it promised an inside look at the high-stakes world of storage unit auctions in Southern California. Bidders like Hester would compete to buy abandoned lockers sight unseen, hoping to uncover hidden gems amid the junk. Hester, with his signature "Yoop" battle cry, quickly became the villain viewers love to hate, aggressive, calculating, and unapologetically profit-driven. He wasn't just yelling for the cameras. Hester brought real experience to the table, and it showed. He'd been in the auction business for years, and it wasn't just about flipping stuff for a quick buck. This guy knew what he was doing. He could spot value in ways most people wouldn't even notice. On TV, it made him seem almost unstoppable. He outbid rivals with confidence, talked smack during inspections, and sometimes left people staring in disbelief as he walked away with a locker full of what looked like worthless junk, only to turn it into thousands of dollars. One episode highlighted a haul full of vintage slot machines and rare comic books. A $500 bid turned into a fortune, and viewers ate it up. And it wasn't only about the money. The drama between Hester and the other cast members was electric. Daryl Sheets, Brandy Pasanta, and Hester clashed constantly, and it often felt unscripted. Fans loved it. Some of those fights seemed like real tension spilling out, while others were carefully encouraged behind the scenes. Either way, Hester thrived in it. He was both feared and admired in the storage auction world, which translated perfectly to television. Beyond the cameras, Hester's real-life business ventures added layers to his persona. He ran auction houses and thrift stores in Orange County, places like Dave Hester Auctions and Rags to Riches thrift store. That wasn't just a side note, it gave his TV persona credibility. Viewers weren't just watching someone pretend to know the business, he literally lived it. By the time Season 2 rolled around, Storage Wars was pulling in over 4 million viewers per episode. Spin-offs like Storage Wars, Texas popped up, proving the formula worked. Hester's net worth reportedly reached around $4 million, thanks to show salaries, merchandise, and expanded business ventures. Still, the fame came with its own baggage. Even as he rose to the top, Hester admitted he had misgivings. Producers wanted bigger reactions, more tension, more drama, and sometimes that meant exaggerating reality. Hester pushed back when things crossed a line into flat-out fabrication. The villain label stuck, and while it helped him sell his brand, it also changed how colleagues in the auction world saw him. Some thought he'd turned into a showboat, prioritizing TV persona over industry respect. But Hester leaned into it anyway. He knew the exposure could grow his business empire and his personal brand. And for a while, it worked. What made it even more intriguing was that this period of ascent was also the beginning of cracks forming beneath the surface. The man who could spot hidden treasure everywhere, both in lockers and opportunities, started noticing things that didn't sit right. Little inconsistencies, moments that felt forced. Hester had climbed to the top, but the very system that elevated him was also setting the stage for conflict. And as much as fans loved the villain, they had no idea that the story behind the scenes was about to get even more complicated. Dave Hester's early life and career. Long before the bright lights of reality TV, Dave Hester's life was steeped in the art of the deal, shaped by a nomadic childhood and a family legacy of collecting and trading. Born on July 23, 1964, at Camp Pendleton Marine Corps Base in Oceanside, California, Hester grew up in a military household. His dad was a career serviceman who loved trains almost as much as he loved rules, and his mom, of Mexican descent, added a layer of cultural richness to the household, though she mostly stayed out of the spotlight. Moving every few years because of military postings wasn't easy, but it taught young Dave adaptability, the ability to size up a situation fast, and to spot opportunities where others might only see chaos. By the time he was 5, Hester was tagging along with his parents to auctions, soaking up lessons about haggling, spotting value, and taking calculated risks. They'd go to estate sales and community auctions, digging through furniture, collectibles, and whatever else they could flip for a profit. Those trips weren't just errands. They were education. Every chair, clock, or trinket was a tiny puzzle he had to figure out. When his father retired in 1979, the family had amassed an enormous train collection. Thousands of pieces, some rare, some ordinary, but all potentially valuable. And when Dave was just 14, he was put in charge of selling it off. That project took 5 years and a lot of elbow grease, but the money they made was substantial. More importantly, it taught him lessons he'd carry for the rest of his life: patience, negotiation, and the thrill of turning overlooked items into cash. "I learned early that value is where you find it," he said in one rare interview. It wasn't just about money, it was about the process, the hunt, the deal-making. As he grew older, Hester dove deeper into the auction world. In the 1980s, he became a licensed auctioneer, focusing on estate sales and storage unit auctions. He opened his first thrift store, Rags to Riches, in Costa Mesa, California, where he'd resell what he picked up at auctions. The model was straightforward: bid low on bulk lots, sift through everything, keep what was valuable, and flip the rest. Over time, he expanded. More stores, more auction services, more reputation. By the 2000s, Dave Hester Auctions handled everything from foreclosed homes to abandoned storage lockers. If there was something hidden, undervalued, or overlooked, he would find it. People in the Southern California auction scene came to respect, and sometimes fear, his ability to spot fakes, identify true gems, and know when to walk away. This life wasn't glamorous. Dusty warehouses, negotiating with stubborn sellers, navigating the legal side of liens, and dealing with the unpredictable chaos of storage auctions were the daily grind. But it shaped him. It built resilience, patience, and an almost instinctual understanding of value. It's why when Storage Wars producers came calling in 2009, he was a perfect fit. He wasn't just another TV personality. They wanted someone who could actually walk the walk, who knew what he was talking about, and who could bring credibility to the show. And here's the thing: understanding this side of Hester makes his later actions make a lot more sense. His complaints weren't just about being fired or wanting more money. They were about the integrity of the auctions, the industry he'd spent decades mastering. He had seen the business up close, learned its rules, and knew when those rules were bent or broken for the sake of entertainment. When he spoke up, it wasn't theatrics. It was a defense of a world he loved, a world built on trust, skill, and a deep understanding of value. But that raises a bigger question. If one man could spot manipulation behind the scenes, what did that say about the entire reality TV industry? And more importantly, how deep did the problem really go? The bigger problem: Hester exposed. After Hester's lawsuit made headlines, something shifted. It wasn't just about Storage Wars anymore. It was about every reality show that promised real life, but somehow always looked a little too perfect. Suddenly, fans were rewatching their favorite episodes with a sharper eye. Those wow moments didn't feel so spontaneous anymore. That rare painting pulled from a dusty corner? Maybe not so rare. That dramatic face-off between bidders? Maybe not so heated. Hester had cracked open a door, and people couldn't help but peek inside. The irony was that his claims didn't surprise everyone. Some fans had always joked that the show felt too staged to be authentic. But hearing it from Hester, the guy who built his TV persona on being blunt and unapologetically real, gave the rumors weight. He wasn't just ranting online, he filed paperwork, showed up in court, and put his reputation on the line. Whether you liked him or not, you had to admit he was brave enough to challenge an entire industry that thrived on illusion. And this is where it got interesting. Once the curtain was pulled back, people started connecting the dots. Other shows like Pawn Stars, American Pickers, and Duck Dynasty had faced whispers of scripting or planted discoveries. Producers would always deny it, of course. They'd say they were simply enhancing entertainment value. But the pattern was too consistent to ignore. Hester's lawsuit became the loudest alarm in a room that had been buzzing for years. You see, reality TV was never meant to be real. It was designed to feel real. There's a difference. Viewers crave stories, heroes, villains, underdogs, lucky breaks. And when real life doesn't deliver that neatly, TV magic steps in. Suddenly, a mundane storage auction becomes a mini-drama. A routine find turns into a national treasure. Conflict keeps people watching. It's not fraud in the traditional sense, it's performance disguised as authenticity. But where's the line between storytelling and deception? That's the question Hester's fight forced everyone to ask. For the networks, the answer was simple. As long as ratings were high, who cared? The audience still tuned in every week, popcorn in hand. They might complain in the comments, but they kept watching. That's what frustrated Hester the most. The way the industry counted on people's short attention spans. The scandal would fade, another season would drop, and life would go on. It was almost like the outrage had become part of the marketing. But underneath that cycle was something darker. A quiet erosion of trust between viewers and creators. Hester's story also hit a nerve because it wasn't just about business. It was about honesty. Think about it. When you spend years in a system built on half-truths, it's easy to start questioning everything, even yourself. Was he complicit before he spoke out? Maybe. Was he trying to make peace with that guilt by exposing it later? Possibly. What's clear is that his breaking point came from seeing how far the illusion had gone, and realizing nobody wanted to stop it. And the industry's reaction proved his point. They didn't change the rules. They didn't rewrite policies or acknowledge the manipulation. They just settled the case quietly and kept the cameras rolling. That silence said everything. It wasn't about who was right or wrong. It was about protecting the brand. Because if one reality show was confirmed fake, people might start questioning them all. The fallout: lawsuits, media storms, and a bruised reputation. The fallout came fast, probably faster than even Dave Hester expected. One day, he was the guy shouting "Yoop" at storage auctions, and the next, he was at the center of a media storm, lawsuits, and endless speculation. Once news of his case against Storage Wars hit, the show went from must-watch TV to a courtroom saga. Suddenly, Dave wasn't just bidding on lockers. He was bidding for the truth, and not everyone wanted to hear it. The media had a field day. Outlets from The Hollywood Reporter to Deadline ran stories breaking down every angle. Is Storage Wars fake? Became the question on everyone's lips. A&E wasn't just sitting back. They fought hard, framing Hester as a disgruntled ex-employee out for revenge. By early 2013, the network filed an anti-SLAPP motion. a legal tactic meant to protect free speech while trying to shut down a case they viewed as frivolous. The judge, Michael Johnson, dismissed some of Hester's fraud claims but allowed the wrongful termination portion to proceed. It wasn't a total win, but it came with a sting: $122,000 in legal fees. Hester called it unjust, and it was hard to argue with him. Online, fans went wild. People picked sides. Some saw him as bitter, just another reality star trying to stay relevant. Others saw him as the one brave enough to pull back the curtain. Reddit threads became full-blown detective missions, with users replaying episodes, scanning every scene for signs it might have been staged. Even his co-stars weighed in, sometimes subtly, sometimes not. Brandy Passante mostly kept her distance. Daryl Sheets cracked jokes at Hester's expense, and Barry Weiss, ever the enigma, didn't say much, but often smirked in ways that made fans read between the lines. Meanwhile, Hester was gone from the show for 2 full seasons. During that time, he threw himself into his businesses, running auctions, managing stores, and selling his Yoop merchandise. But no matter how busy he got, the controversy never left him. Every win came with skepticism. Then came an ironic twist, a legal hiccup involving a real-life storage auction. Hester paid almost $12,000 for a unit that shouldn't have been auctioned at all. He lost the case. Fans couldn't help but notice the irony. The guy who had exposed staged lockers had just made a very real mistake of his own. 2014 changed things a little. His case with A&E settled quietly for an undisclosed amount. And then the surprise, he was invited back to Storage Wars for Season 5. No press conference, no public apology. Just a familiar face walking back into the auction room. To some fans, it looked like redemption. To others, it seemed more like a truce. Either way, it was clear they needed each other. Hester got his platform back. A&E got the controversy that kept viewers talking, and the show continued to thrive. But coming back didn't erase the toll. Years of lawsuits and public scrutiny had left marks. Financial, emotional, maybe even physical. He wasn't quite the same loud, brash mogul. Beneath the confidence, there was a subtle weariness, maybe wisdom, maybe just fatigue. Whatever it was, fans could see it on screen. He was still the same Dave Hester who could spot value in a dusty locker, but the experience had changed him. And as always, with Dave Hester, the story didn't end with courtroom battles or reality TV drama. What came next wasn't publicized in headlines. It wasn't another feud. It was personal, quiet, and far more challenging. Something that would test him in ways no storage unit or lawsuit ever could. Personal trials and health scare. When the noise of lawsuits and headlines faded, Dave Hester faced a different kind of battle. The quiet, personal one. For years, he had carried the weight of controversy like a second skin, but that toll didn't stay on screen. Married to Donna Hester and father to Dave Jr., he had always guarded his private life fiercely. Cameras never saw the exhaustion, the endless court dates, or the behind-the-scenes work of rebuilding from a lawsuit that could have derailed everything. Then, in 2019, life hit him in a way no court case could. Hester suffered a major stroke, an event doctors partly linked to years of stress and non-stop work. Suddenly, the guy who once thrived on control and bravado had to relearn basic things: how to walk, how to talk, even how to eat. It was a humbling reset. "It was the scariest time of my life," he admitted in a 2021 interview, giving credit to his family's unwavering support for keeping him going. Those months in the hospital and in rehab weren't glamorous, and there were no cameras following him through the tough spots. Just real life, patience, and hard work. During his recovery, Hester stepped away from Storage Wars for seasons 13 through 15. Some assumed his story with the show was over, that the iconic "Yoop" might never echo in a locker room again. But Hester isn't the kind of guy to just fade out. While rehabbing, he threw himself into his thrift store business, spent more time mentoring his son, and focused inward. That time off changed him. When he returned in season 16, quietly slipping into an auction before letting out that familiar "Yoop," it wasn't the same cocky mogul who had left. There was still fire, but now there was also a layer of humility. Fans noticed it too. The bravado was still there, sure, but it felt tempered, grounded. The stroke also shifted his priorities. He began supporting stroke awareness campaigns and veteran charities, reconnecting with the roots of his upbringing. It gave him purpose outside of the spotlight, and oddly enough, that made him even more engaging on screen. In a world where reality TV often chews up its stars, Hester's survival felt like a small but meaningful victory. By 2025, his finances had bounced back, with estimates putting his net worth between $4 and $5 million. But wealth was never the main story. The bigger legacy was the way he had shaken the industry. After his lawsuit, A&E quietly added disclaimers about dramatized recreations in storage wars. It wasn't a headline-grabbing change, but it was a sign that his stand had made a difference. Still, one question lingered. Why did it take so much personal cost for people to take him seriously? Psychologists talk about the comfort of illusion. Audiences want spectacle even when they suspect it's staged. Hester summed it up best. People want the dream, not the dirt. Even after his comeback, the echoes of his fight kept surfacing. Other reality shows faced scrutiny. The Quiet on Set documentary pulled back the curtain on Nickelodeon's issues, while lawsuits against shows like Love Island cited Hester's case as precedent. His warnings kept coming, repeated in different forms. The same cycle of outrage, denial, and eventual acknowledgement. Hester's journey, from whistleblower to survivor, reminds us that truth-tellers rarely walk away unscathed, but they leave something behind. A map for questioning what we watch and why. His voice still hums in the background of every so-called unscripted show. And maybe that's the real treasure he uncovered. Not a rare watch, a comic, or a hidden gold coin, but the simple, uncomfortable truth. Reality isn't always what it seems, and sometimes it deserves its own auction. So, what do you think? Was Dave Hester a whistleblower we should have listened to, or just a guy calling out the obvious? Share with us in the comments below. If you found this eye-opening, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our deep dives into the untold stories of your favorite shows. Thanks for watching, fam!